Now more than ever, welcome to Unicity. We're finishing up a very strong April. Thanks to all of you. This is our time. I spoke with one of our leaders earlier today. This leader told me in the past 7 days, she's enrolled 12 new people to our Unicity family. Congratulations to her. And by the way, why is that happening now? This is not a unique story. I'll tell you right now, we are entering a perfect storm of opportunity. Let me offer 3 reasons. Number 1, at Unicity, you can develop an additional stream of income. You can develop a primary stream of income. Number 2, at Unicity, you will find shelter from the hurricane of metabolic problems that are sweeping our countries. Safety in the storm. Number 3, at Unicity, you will be standing on rock-solid foundations of science and real results that you can share, you can feel, on which you can build a good life and a good business. Now, I have a great pleasure today to introduce Rav and Kiran, who are our hosts today, or Kiran and Rav, depending on who you're talking with. Now, these two were recognized at a reward trip at the GLIC, the Global Convention, as being among the top performers in enrolling new members to Unicity. They overqualified for Hawaii and had a great time there. They blew the doors off the qualifications. And they are currently among our top performers month after month after month. They're great presenters. I've been with their meetings many times. I've watched them. I remember once Kiran told me, I'm a little bit nervous. Then she went out and like Dale Carnegie himself, did an amazing job. So with great pleasure, I'd like to turn the time over to Rav and Kiran, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Clayton. You have given me a fine reputation to live up to. Thank you and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just wanted to share with you how excited Rav and I are for the incredible opportunity that we have with Unicity. Since this whole COVID-19 pandemic started, initially we're a little bit worried about the effects of that on our business, but it's actually been a blessing for us because we've been busier more than ever to help our customers, help more and more people with their health, help distributors earn an extra income. And this is because we've seen a shift in the way that people are prioritizing their lives. They prioritize quality of life. They want to take care of their health. They want to be with their families more. They want to spend more time with their families. And so Unicity has really set up a perfect platform for us to be able to provide that and make life better for people. And, we are so grateful for Unicity's corporate leadership, from Clayton to Dan Hughes, who's going to be speaking today, and, for everyone, who's really put in all that work, and the customer service who spends their time to help us place those orders and get everything out on time. Just the fact that we have that support from our Unicity partners, it just makes the world of the difference, and it makes our life easier. Now, before we introduce our guest speaker tonight, I wanted to acknowledge 2 Canadian leaders, fellow Canadian leaders, that hosted their own calls last week. Last week, we had Young Kim from Toronto, Canada, host our Now More Than Ever call. And Young Kim is a business leader that's growing her business from South Korea and Canada, and she shared the powerful importance of omega-3 and super green. The other Canadian leader is from Montreal. Her name is Lubna. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Lubna. And she actually set an incredible example, by having over 130 people on her call that she hosted. And so she just set a powerful example for all of us to follow.
And so we're also very excited to announce today's guest speaker, who I heard him speak about the similar topic for the Indian group. So India is doing webinars right now 3 times a week. And he spoke for their group. And the topic that he talked about, I thought it was important for everyone in North America to know. If you're a Unicity customer, I think it's important for you to know, to understand how the products are still, second to none, and they're still top-notch quality, and COVID-19 and this pandemic has not affected that. In fact, we're growing. And if you're a Unicity partner like us, and if you're part-time or full-time, you can be more proud than ever to know that the management has followed the right principles, has done the right steps in place for us to build a home that will last generations. So with that being said, I want to introduce someone who, if you haven't been following on Instagram, he's an elite level triathlete. I mean, his races put my fitness to shame. He runs Ironman regularly. Well, right now he's not running it, but he set up his cycle in his own house, and he's been doing it from home. He's the chief operating officer of the company. He's had many other roles with the company, but he's been involved with the company since he's been a kid, because his father was a distributor in the company and went in 2006 to purchase the company. So he knows the company inside out, and I'm so grateful to have him on the call today to talk about what's happening with Unicity, the updates with Unicity, and how you should be more proud than ever to be a part of this Unicity family. Dan Hughes.
Hi, nice to meet everybody. Great to be on here. I have to correct Rav. I'm not really elite in triathlon, but I am trying. Okay, so yeah, Rav said I have a little bit of a presentation. I'll share my screen. I don't know if we'll have Q&A. I guess I'll leave that up to you guys. But I think that we're all interested in what's going on with the new world we have here with coronavirus and all the changes. And I can give you a bit of update of how we're dealing with some of those and how it looks like from inside the company. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, are we good there?
Yep.
Okay. So current environment is pretty sketchy in a lot of places. We've got a lot of borders have been closed. Businesses are a lot of times facing the decision to close or risk infection. A lot of times the decision's out of their hands, and they've been deemed non-essential businesses and automatically closed. And most businesses in the world are kind of always on the edge of solvency. And so this really hits a lot of companies and a lot of people hard. And especially, I mean, within the US, the unemployment benefits are not available to everybody. And outside the US, it's really a mixed bag. A lot of people in most of the world, what it is that if you don't work, you don't eat. So this is a really tough time for a lot of people. Especially in developing world, World Bank estimates that, this is an old estimate actually, it says April 30th, but that's wrong. I think it was March 30th. But the estimate I've seen is actually much higher than this in terms of people being driven into poverty. So the situation really, really isn't great. I think that in the US and Canada, we're expecting, huge economic downturn, and the unemployment is out of control. We're hopeful that there's a plan that we'll start coming back to work. We'll start being able to operate with this pandemic. But what it seems like is it's going to be with us for a long time. And one way or another, we can be wearing masks and doing all kinds of things, but we'll have to be extra careful, and it's not going to be like it was before. So what are we doing on that? So like Rav and Kiran and Clayton said, people are looking for a way to take control of their lives. People want to have the freedom to have an income and work from home. It's not dependent on a business that's struggling on the razor edge of solvency. And that's the question. Is there a low beta or high beta? I forget my business school education. Is there something that's really repression proof and counter-cyclical that we can build on? We know that if you're in the toilet paper industry, you're in good hands, because when things get rough, people make sure they have their essentials. So network marketing in past recessions we've seen is very much a strong countercyclical sales channel. That when traditional jobs and economic factors slow down, people look for another option, because the world over, it's not any different, I think, anywhere in the world. If you don't have something to do, you're going to look for something else. You're going to hustle something because, yeah, in order to eat, you got to work. And the more ways we can find the leverage to get around the normal ways, the better. And I think that's why we've seen at Unicity a lot of success in developing countries in Southeast Asia and the Middle East and North Africa. We see a lot of success because what we're seeing now with COVID-19 in the US and Canada is kind of like any given Tuesday in Algeria, that kind of basically economic depression. So when normal things aren't working, you see a lot of other ways that people find to get things done. And what we want to provide with direct selling and network marketing is a way to really leverage that. People are still buying consumable products, personal care, health supplements. Sales of those are way up globally. It's kind of like the toilet paper and the grocery store items. People have not stopped buying things. They've actually increased buying those basic consumables. And they've probably cut back on things like automobiles. And what we do and what we do in our sales channel, our business model, is find a way to get those sales to customers. Now, talking about the company, yeah, not all companies are equal. I think there's a little bit of a Lindy principle, which is that something that has lasted for a long time is likely to last for a long time in the future. And we're kind of that Unicity. We've been doing this since the early 90s, so more than 20 years now. And then our parent company, is over 100 years old. So we're not kind of flash in the pan. That's been proven already. Our leadership is very distributor-centric and focused. We know that we, as a company, are serving the distributors. That is our mission to help and support. We're not trying to compete. And we have a lot of benefits. I'll get into that a little more on the operational capacity and geography. So I think you all know Unicity's, we have a track record of proven and clinically relevant, verifiable solutions for metabolic health. And we have a great way to deliver those products to people in such a way that they can both understand them with a good explanation from a person who cares about them, and also have a follow-up. And it's really unique in our environment to have both the delivery system that actually works for people, that it's not just ship somebody a package and let them figure it out, or hope that they buy it off the shelf in the grocery store, but actually really deliver what they need, which is the explanation and the accountability, and have the product that is a quality product that actually works. So those are the things that we put together. There's a lot of people selling supplements, but the more you get into the manufacturing and then supplement business, especially in the US, where it's not regulated at all, the more you can learn that there's a huge inequality in what you're buying on the shelf. Even two things that say the same thing on the label might not be the same thing. So it's important to really choose quality. Okay, so talking about the geography, this is a few years ago. We have updated. Okay, so our marketing team has gotten a little ahead of us. We're not in mainland China, but everything else is correct. We're really spread all over the world. And for a company of our size to have this geographic spread is pretty incredible. What that does for us is it's forced us to have a pretty lean business model, and also to be very good at communication across time zones and across offices, and be very mobile. It's been a great setup for us in terms of preparing for this work from home environment, because we've already been doing it. My colleagues are, in all kinds of different countries. and offices, and we communicate great. I hardly ever have a call with anybody in the US when I'm at our office. It's always at home because of the time zones. So the shift to working from home for most of our team hasn't been a big deal. And in fact, we had some experience. I was in Thailand since 2009, and we had these riots and a couple of different coups. And then we had a big flood in 2011 where nobody could go anywhere in the city in Bangkok. And so we've had a couple of experiences where we had to work from home. We had to have our customer service log in from their houses. And since 2010, I've never authorized the purchase of a desktop computer. It's always been, we're going to be laptop, we're going to be mobile, we're going to have our data in the cloud so that it's redundant with multiple data centers. We have our approvals as much as possible online and all our paperwork online. So we've been able to adjust to this environment pretty easily in a lot of ways. There's some things that are difficult. I'll get into those. So we want to stay, though, focused on the biggest issue that we have. There's a lot of problems we could solve. We've tried to focus on the biggest one where we think we can do the most good. And that's in metabolic health. So I'm going to show you this little graphic. These are the different ways that you could die. This is an annual around the world. So yeah, I wouldn't have considered that horses are more dangerous than wolves, but it's what it seems to be. Hippos and elephants, way worse than lions. So it's kind of nice to look at this and see the comparison, the things that we were worried about versus the things that will actually kill us. Dogs and terrorists about the same in terms of how many they're actually doing in each year right now. We see a lot about conflict and war right now, but it's actually things like mosquitoes that are causing a lot of damage. And the big one is cardiovascular diseases. In fact, the cardiovascular diseases, diabetes and heart disease, are more than everything else combined. And I think we've seen from all the coverage of the COVID-19 that what we're getting with the people who are having the worst outcomes with this, and of course it's not everybody, but the worst outcomes are people that have compromised cardiovascular health. And so you have to wonder, would this pandemic have been as bad if we weren't in the environment that we're in right now, where we have $3.5 trillion in the US every year going into these kind of snack foods. They're really snack foods, but they are replacing a lot of our meals. And it's compromising our cardiovascular and metabolic health. We're in a situation where most people, I think in the US, only 17% of adults are what you would call metabolically healthy. And so when you have a disease that's vastly worse for those with compromised metabolic health, then it's really a perfect storm. And so this is the problem that we're focused on. We don't, whatever happens, we stay really laser targeted on this. And that's the problem we're going to solve because, we're working to solve because that's where we feel like we together can do the most good. Okay, so to talk a little bit about what we're doing. We've always kept a little bit of an extra buffer on our inventory, more than what you'd see in kind of the Walmart lean inventory system, the just-in-time. We've normally kept a little bit of buffer, and as soon as this started, in where I am in Singapore right now, it got kind of serious in the middle to late January. We were one of the first countries to have a lot of cases. So at that time, we started taking it seriously, and we started bumping our inventory levels, because we know that there's going to be issues when countries close their borders and when companies shut down. We have trouble with ingredients and all those kinds of unforeseen things. So we started to get our orders in first, get our raw materials purchased so that we could maintain and not have any hiccups. That we always have a concern that if we buy something, the sales may not deliver in time. But in this situation, the management, so myself and Kurt, decided that it's worth taking a risk. We'd rather have too much inventory than too little in this situation. In terms of the supply, so a lot of interesting things are happening with trade right now. Over 50% of air freight has always flown on passenger planes. And it's a huge part of how the commercial airlines make money is by actually moving freight. So with commercial air travel, basically, I think it's dropped by 97, 98%. I don't even know who's still flying, but basically nobody's flying right now. And that means that air freight has really dropped off a cliff. Now, the freighters are still going, and no countries that I know of have actually closed their borders. So we're still able to ship everywhere. It's just become very tricky and very expensive to go by air. So it's good that we've had a good network of regional warehouses and ocean shipping, and also that we had a little bit of time to get our inventory stocked up a little bit, because we've been able to keep things moving by ocean freight by being early enough. And then otherwise we have to go by air. We pay about 4 times more than we did in the past for air, but it's still moving. You know, in terms of making sure that we have items, product and production going on, all of our manufacturing and factories have so far all been deemed essential businesses, and we expect that to continue. We have looked into a lot of redundancies. We have backups for almost every top product, and we're working on backups for those and for their ingredients. We have 4 labs and manufacturing facilities around the world. So we've worked out plans to have redundancies on some of those things. We were scared we were a bit nervous early on when San Francisco and those counties started closing down some of their travel and non-essential, because we have some manufacturing in that area. But nothing happened. We're still open and producing, but we came up with a plan to shift some of that stuff to other places. So but for now, we're keeping that plan on hold. It's there in case we need it. We've also had our R&D team working hard to find substitutes for all of our ingredients. So all of our key ingredients, we source control them, so we make sure we know where they're coming from. And we have backups in other places. We had an issue where we couldn't get an ingredient out of France because of their lockdown. And so we were able to find another one from New Zealand, where we still were able to get things out. So that's what our R&D team is really working on hard, and we're glad we have such a strong team internally. And of course, having the labs to be able to mix up prototypes and pilots and confirm that ingredients work is really important. Why do we have all these labs in manufacturing? Because I think that typical business advice would tell you not to do that it's more efficient to not do that internally. I read all the articles that Apple is messed up by trying to make things themselves, and Tesla messes up by trying to make things themselves. But then you wait a little while and you find out that Apple and Tesla can make things that none of their competitors can make, because they actually understand the manufacturing processes and can control those. So that's been our strategy. We're fortunate that the owners of the company really invest back the profits. That they are not trying to suck the company dry or even get anything out of it. They're interested in growing the company. And so we've really invested heavily in the production and the R&D, so that we really understand the product, so that when we go to make it, we can make products that other people can't. that's really coming in handy, like I said, now to be able to skip I mean, if you're using a contract manufacturer right now, especially for some of the products that are hot right now, it's really difficult to get your product made because they're getting orders from everybody. But in our case, we have our factories, they only work for us. And so we're able to arrange our schedule as we see fit. So we're going to keep working hard on that to avoid any disruptions in the supply chain. We have our operations team in the US and Korea and Singapore and Bangkok, and we're having daily calls, and I'm proud to say they're like ninjas. Things are changing fast, and they're just finding all kinds of solutions. We had our regional warehouse here in Singapore was closed down. It was deemed non-essential, and within days we had things shifted out. We had it moved out to another third-party logistics center that had the permission to operate. We had shipments rerouted in transit to other places, to a free zone that we use in Thailand. They really took care of stuff, and it was amazing to see. And then yesterday I found out that we were then granted the approval on appeal in Singapore. So now we're essential and we're back to operating. So we're flexible, and I think that really goes back to our roots, that we've always tried to stay a small company. Even as we've grown, we've tried to be nimble, to not have a lot of bureaucracy, to be able to react to these things fast. And that's helped us a ton. Another big deal is having zero debt. So like I mentioned, a lot of companies are always on the edge of solvency, and we are not in that situation because we've tried to take a very conservative approach. Just because things look good now doesn't mean they're always going to be good. So we haven't levered the company up and tried to be as tax efficient as we could. Instead, we've built it in such a way that it's very robust and ready for any kind of eventuality. And, that's how you survive 100 plus years. It's not by being high-tuned all the time. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more conservative and robust. And you see that in a lot of companies right now, unfortunately. I was, not to dump on anybody, but I was looking at another company in this sales channel that their market cap right now is like $100 million. And they have like $2 billion in revenue, but they're trading at pennies on what they should be worth, because they borrowed a ton of money a few years ago and did stock buybacks, and now they have a $600 million debt coming due, and things are just not looking good for them. So yeah, I'm happy to say that we're not in that situation. We have a good buffer, and we haven't been so aggressive that we're in trouble now. And that again comes back to my dad, Stuart, and Kurt really being invested in the company and reinvesting in it and trying to build it and grow and make it robust and stable. And a little bit of experience knowing that a lot of this game is not who is the best today, but who is alive tomorrow. And that's where a lot of our focus has been. So we're also one of the things we can do when we're locked down is to keep the science and research and development going. And we've been continuing to invest in that. This is our science advisory board, and these guys are outside advisors. But probably a lot more important than that, we have a team internally of PhDs and scientists and food scientists. We have a really strong team in Utah, and I think you know some of them. You probably don't know some of the team that we have in Singapore, but they're also very smart. And then in where we have laboratories and manufacturing, we have great teams. We have scientists there as well in Korea and Vietnam. And yeah, we're still, I think, tops in science. Now, I think I skipped something that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, missed the slide. Well, I can tell you about it even without the picture, which was a great picture. So we're in the process of building a new manufacturing center in the U.S., in Utah, near our corporate office there. And it's coming along. It should be done in end of May. We should be able to start producing product. So what that's for is to support the U.S. market. Turn my screen sharing off. And to support export all over the world. And the reason we're building this third manufacturing center is also to have the additional backup and to be able to level load all over the world. The other benefit this gives us is in the product development. If you are developing a product, you have to go through several rounds of prototypes and samples to get the right thing. If you're doing that with outside suppliers, you lose control of the IP. Using outside suppliers, they're working for a lot of different companies, and nobody is going to be able to keep this secret in one part of their brain. And somebody asks them about the same thing later, and they don't think of, oh, I remember a good solution to that problem. So we know that's human nature. I mean, I think most of the consulting industry is just there to be able to tell you what your competitors are doing. And so in terms of our product development, we like to keep it very tight and in-house. And one of the ways we're able to do that is by manufacturing ourselves. So that's in process. I think you'll hear more about it as our factory completes in a few weeks. And that's still going ahead even with all the restrictions going on. I think that by keeping ourselves firmly in the health supplement and also food registration, then we'll always be in the kind of essential business category, because we know we need food. That's really important. Let me see. And then to sum up, I guess what I want to emphasize is that, again, we're focused on the biggest problems. We have the best solutions to that, the products and the delivery method that are our way of not just cranking the products out, which anybody can do. We can do that all day long, but also being able to deliver to people from somebody they trust and from somebody who cares about them, and be able to teach them and lead them through it is really, really unique and really vital. And I'm proud to be a part of it. We have, I'm proud to say that we're rock solid right now, and we're in a great situation. It's sad to see that not every company is, and there's a lot of pain going on right now. And we're happy we're in a position to help, because we have commitments to you, we have commitments to our distributors and to our customers, and we're going to be around to keep those commitments. So Rav and Kiran, Clayton, that's what I have. That's my presentation. I don't know if you have any questions. It's nice to see you guys. I've met some of you in person at the conventions, and then see some of you on Instagram and Twitter. It's great to see your faces sort of in real time.
Well, thank you, Dan, for your time and that great presentation. If anyone has any questions, they can put in the chat box, but I'm going to continue to respect everyone's time. That presentation was powerful. That presentation built even deeper belief, and at least Kiran and I can say that we're so proud to be partnered with Unicity, to be aligned with Unicity, and we're so grateful that we have the management and the owners like yourself. We're actually keeping track of looking at the future, not just focusing on now. And that reminds me, to wrap up our call, that reminds me of a story that I heard, which I think applies today more than ever before. And the story is about a farmer who had this farm, and he was managing his farm, taking care of it, but eventually it got so big he needed some help. So he ends up going and doing interviews to hire some help, and he interviews a bunch of young men, and everyone kind of gives him a similar answer. So he asks one question. He's like, what makes you different than everyone else? And as usual, people give their similar answers. I focus on my disadvantages or whatever. But one guy said, I can sleep through anything. And that threw the farmer off a little bit. He's like, that's a strange answer. And he thought about it, pondered upon it. And a couple of days later, he called the young man. And he said, okay, I want to hire you. He was just betting, taking a gamble and seeing what happens. Well, months passed by. The farmer was really happy with this guy. Things went really well. And one night came and the farmer's sleeping. And while he's sleeping, he got a call from his neighbor, and his neighbor's in panic. He's panicking. He's like, "You got to go outside. A tornado's coming. There's a lot of wind. We need to protect everything." And his neighbor's panicking. His other neighbor calls him, starts panicking. His other neighbor calls him, starts panicking. He starts panicking. He runs outside. He goes to look for his helper, and he sees his helper sleeping. So he tries to wake his helper up, and his helper doesn't wake up. And so he's like in regret. He's like, I made such a stupid mistake. I can't believe I hired this guy. So he goes and checks his hay. Well, his hay's all tied up and covered up. He goes in the barn and checks the animals, and they're all put away and safely kept. The cables are put together. Everything's taken care of. He goes and checks his land. Everything's taken care of. And the farmer goes back in his home, takes off his clothes, goes to sleep in peace, and he doesn't worry about a thing. And I heard this story a while ago, and I think this story applies today more than ever before. One, yes, people looked at Unicity and said, oh, you guys are debt-free. It's not a smart tax decision. But today, we can feel confident as Unicity partners that Unicity has done Unicity has done the hard work in the beginning. They've eaten the crust first. So during times like this, we can grow and we can thrive and we can continue, not just for our own selfish needs, but for the greater good of humanity, because people today need us now more than ever. And with the business component, I mean, Dan already said a lot about it, but I just read today 26 million Americans have lost their job because of coronavirus. 4.4 million Americans just today. That is insane. And unfortunately, that's for people who put their future in companies who had poor management. And today they've had to close their doors and they've had to let their employees go, or, the situation of the world that nobody saw. And this leaves me with, many of you might be looking at your businesses today and you might think that it's such an obstacle. What can I do? But I encourage you to look at it as the obstacle is the way. And this reminds me of a quote, which I also heard a while ago, which I think applies today more than ever before. In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And we look at a situation like this where the company has adapted and started these amazing Zoom call meetings, and they've set up a platform for each of us from our mobile phones. We have people from all over North America and actually the world who are watching this from their mobile phone, and they're able to build this business from their phone. I mean, I've had to charge my phone these days more than I've ever had to charge it because I've been so busy helping people and impacting people. And I want to thank Unicity for that. And so we started another tradition as well with these promotions, which I think is spoiling us because, I mean, with everything Dan has said, the company has, our products obviously cost a lot. They're not cheap to make. But the company is helping us to help our customers and for our business partners to help us grow our businesses. So they've been doing weekly promotions on these webinars. So today's promotion until tomorrow midnight is, if you haven't already tried it, you can try our Unicity Matcha Focus. And for Unicity Matcha Energy is already one of our top selling products. The Unicity Matcha Focus is a different variation without the added caffeine, but it has an ingredient in it which is for brain health and brain focus. So there's more of that in the Unicity Matcha Focus. And if you already love the Unicity Matcha Energy, I highly recommend trying the Unicity Matcha Focus as an evening drink instead of snacking on chips, popcorn, and all that junk. So for this promotion we have, which will benefit a lot of our customers, is if they want to try it, there is $5 off a box if you buy a single box. So we've seen a lot of promotions with more bulk products, and a lot of people have been taking advantage of that. But you might have some customers, or you might be maybe the single user in your family or in your household using these products, you can take advantage of this promotion. And if you're a distributor, you can actually stack the Matcha Focus and compound your discounts. So if you buy 3 boxes, you get, $15 discount. If you buy 10 boxes, you get $50 discount. You can get yourself a free box or use that profit to do whatever you want. So I highly encourage, if you're a Matcha Focus fan, it tastes delicious mixed in the Unimate or in our base products, to try that out. And for next week, I am so grateful to set up that we will be having Crown Diamond Rick Jordan hosting the call. Now, some of you might be on this call like, well, what does Crown Diamond mean? Crown Diamond is just the title, but I can tell you that this is someone who's been involved with one company and one company only since 1994, which is Unicity. He was a successful insurance broker, had his own firm, bought from his father. But like many people, he saw that he was he was running on the golden hamster wheel, where the harder he worked, the less time he had. He saw his health deteriorating, saw problems with his cholesterol. He got involved with our company, tried the products like everyone usually does, saw amazing, measurable blood work-based results on himself, and thought, hey, if I have cholesterol, I wonder how many other people do. And he decided to build his business on a part-time basis. Well, today he has a 9-figure Unicity business. His Unicity business does more than all his other businesses combined. And the lessons I have learned from this man, not just in business, but he's been married to one woman his whole life. He has 7 children. I might be misnumbering this, but he has 36 members in his direct family, starting from him and his wife. And the way that his children speak about him speaks highly, highly of his character. So we're going to be able to learn leadership lessons and personal development lessons from someone who's not just writing books to make money, but actually living the example of that and teaching the example of that, and has done what we're trying to do. So next week on Thursday at 8 p.m., we will have Rick Jordan hosting that call. And I want to end off by apologizing that I'm sorry if you had something planned and we went 12 minutes ahead, but I'm sure you got a lot of value from this call. And thank you all for attending our call tonight. Good night.